Well, hi, welcome on back. I'm Clint Allen. This is Hard Basis, and we're covering today about that butt-exploding diarrhea. We're going to have some social media to have some fun with. Then we're going to have a doctor, and what I did is I took his video and I condensed it to the most important facts. You really need to hear it about the facts, the truth, and the fiction of what's going on here. And then at the end, we're going to cover the conspiracy theories. You're going to love those. So let's get going.
Well, this story really blew up, no pun intended.
Just when we had enough shit in our lives to be worried about, now we have to be worried about literal shit.
I am one of the over 1,000 people to contract CYCLOSPORA. Yes, the explosive diarrhea parasite. I'm not entirely sure where I got it from, although I am an avid fan of Taco Bell, and I'm not gonna stop. I just wanted to make this video to let people know real quick about what it was like from my personal experience and to kind of ease and calm some fears, because there's a lot of people fear-mongering and spreading misinformation about this. The worst thing about this was I felt disgusting. I'm a healthy individual. My immune system is not compromised. I was able to get over it with medication extremely quickly. That doesn't mean that I didn't want to die, rip my insides out and flush them down the drain, because something was living inside of me. And I know that, you know, your gut biome has bacteria or whatever, but that's besides the point. This is what happens when you allow Elon Musk and RFK to cut parasite prevention programs, by the way. Stuff like this just has massive outbreaks because government needs to fight this, not the individual. Just stay safe out there. And if your immune system is compromised, really stay safe out there.
When a curious man pointed a homemade lens at his own diarrhea and saw something swimming.
So next we got the doctor coming up here, but I need your help. I know I'm not owed. I know I'm asking for something here that you don't necessarily have to do, but there is an issue with the platform that you're watching this on, and it would be really grateful if you could just add a like and a comment, because they're purposely pigeonholing my work. Why? I have no idea. Been doing this for years, but it's being done on purpose. It's clearly on purpose. When you put out a video and they show it to 12 people, they show the thumbnail to 12 people. Say, yeah, we did our fucking job. So anyways, if you could please do something, hit a like, put a comment in, subscribe, please, all right? But let's get going.
Right now, a parasite is causing explosive diarrhea for thousands of people and spreading rapidly across the United States. It's turning into a major food safety problem as people are getting it even from eating lettuce or salads and cold food out at restaurants. These parasite infections have now rapidly spread across 31 states, and the people most likely to land in a hospital bed are older adults, people who are over 65. The reason this outbreak may be far bigger than the official account admits may trace back to a quiet decision made inside a government office in 2025. And there is one common and inexpensive antibiotic that can clear it in about a week. There's also a whole industry of parasite cleanse remedies that clears nothing but your wallet, and I'm going to show you exactly which is which. Stay with me here, because after this video, you're going to walk away knowing way more about this outbreak than most people know, even at your doctor's office. And I mean that literally, because this parasite is famous for slipping past the standard tests. By the end of this video, you'll know what this parasite actually is and the genuinely bizarre reason it can't spread from person to person, the warning signs that separate it from ordinary food poisoning, who in your family is truly at risk, the one treatment that works and 4 that don't, and the uncomfortable question of why now, that I'll hand you straight without bias. The parasite is called Cyclospora cayetanensis. It's a single-cell coccidian parasite, a distant cousin of a bug that causes illness in chickens, and of Cryptosporidium, the one that shut down Milwaukee's water supply back in the 1990s. Now the strange part here. When someone is infected and sheds this parasite in their stool, what comes out is not yet infectious. The parasite has to sit in the outside environment, in soil or on produce or in water, for roughly 1 to 2 weeks to ripen, to sporulate, before it can infect the next person. That's well proven. And it has an interesting, beautifully reassuring consequence for caregivers. Because fresh stool isn't contagious, this parasite essentially cannot spread person to person. What is this thing actually doing across 31 states right now? I think this is one of the most shocking parts. As of July 2026, the CDC has confirmed 843 domestically acquired cases across 31 states, with more than 1,500 additional suspected cases still being sorted out, and 86 people hospitalized. But let me give you some useful context here. There have been no reported deaths, most people recover, and CDC counts always lag real life by about 6 weeks. So the true number may be almost certainly much higher than the official tally. The epicenter is Michigan. Ohio has hundreds more. So when you add these states together, the aggregated tally is already pushing 3,000 people sickened. Now here's something I want you to sit with because I think it's genuinely unusual. In a typical outbreak, investigators eventually point to a food, like the cilantro, the bagged salad, the raspberries. As of this recording, they haven't. No common food source has been identified yet, and no cyclospora recall has been issued. I think that's rare and it matters, and I'll explain what it likely means in this video. So, which foods has this parasite been linked to before? That list is important and worth memorizing. Fresh raspberries, fresh basil, cilantro, pre-cut bagged salad mixes, snow peas, snap peas, blackberries, and leafy greens like romaine. For years, Americans assumed this was strictly an imported produce problem, but in July 2019, the FDA confirmed cyclospora for the first time in cilantro grown right here in the US. So the comforting story that it only comes from far away, that's no longer true. And notice the pattern in this food list. Every single one is something we eat raw. Hold on to that thought because it's the key to protecting your family. So how do you know if this is what you got or your loved one got versus just a run-of-the-mill stomach bug? I think this is where CYCLOSPORACES reveals its personality. The hallmark is watery diarrhea, often frequent, often explosive, plus loss of appetite, real weight loss, cramping, bloating, gas, nausea, and a deep fatigue. Fever, if it shows up at all, is usually pretty low. But here's the tell that separates it from ordinary food poisoning, and Dr. Bagdasarian pointed to exactly this. Bacterial food poisoning tends to hit you within hours and burn out fast. Cyclospora is a slow and patient villain. It usually takes sometimes up to a week after you eat the contaminated food before symptoms even begin, and left untreated, it doesn't pass in a day or two. It can drag on for weeks, sometimes more than a month, in a maddening, relapsing, remitting pattern. You feel better, you think it's over, then it comes roaring back. If you had a bout of diarrhea and then you thought you beat it, and then it came back, that is a red flag to get yourself tested. Now, who is truly at risk here? The parasite is dangerous in direct proportion to how fragile the person is. Young children, the immunocompromised, cancer patients, and the group I cover the most, older adults. The primary danger here isn't the parasite itself, it's the dehydration from the prolonged watery diarrhea. Days of fluid loss can quickly spiral into electrolyte imbalances, acute kidney injury, dangerous weakness, dizziness, and this is the one I'm most attuned to, falls. A parasite in a salad could become a broken hip, could become a hospital admission, that could become a permanent loss of independence. So, when do you call the doctor? Watery diarrhea lasting more than a couple of days, or relapsing, or following a possible bad produce exposure. And any sign of dehydration, dizziness, dry mouth, little or dark urine, confusion, a racing heart, or not being able to keep fluids down. In a frail older adult, do not wait it out. And when you call, I'm going to give you a very specific script to say to that doctor in a minute, because it can change the entire outcome. So, this is the part that I found especially interesting. Because the moment an outbreak like this makes the news, the internet floods with natural anti-parasitic cures. Wormwood, black walnut, oregano oil, garlic, berberine, papaya seeds, clove, sold as parasite cleanses. So let me tell you the truth and grade these honestly the way I'd want to tell my own mother. There's no yet published human study, none, showing that any of these herbal remedies treat cyclospora in people. The CDC's recommended treatment guidance doesn't list a single herb, not even as an experimental option. And you may be thinking, but Neil, I've seen studies. So let me walk you through actual studies and evidence because it is more interesting than just the hype. Berberin, the compound in golden seal and barberry, genuinely showed activity against Giardia in a study in the 1970s in a pediatric journal. It was a real study, but that's Giardia. It's a completely different kind of parasite, and that was in children, almost 50 years ago. For Cyclospora, preliminary at best, but possibly no impact. I think it's still interesting and worth doing more research on. Wormwood gives one of the great stories in medicine. In 1972, a Chinese scientist named Tu Yoyo, combing through ancient texts, isolated a compound from sweet wormwood, Artemisia annua, that became artemisinin, today the backbone of malaria treatment worldwide. She won the Nobel Prize in 2015. That's strong evidence. But for malaria caused by Plasmodium and using a purified concentrated drug in combination therapy, not wormwood tea and not against Cyclospora. Nonetheless, I still think it's an interesting concept that merits research. Some of these herbs like artemisinin, berberin, garlic, oregano oil have shown activity against Eimeria, the parasite that causes coccidosis in poultry. And Eimeria is Cyclospora's closest relative, so close that scientists actually use it as a laboratory stand-in for Cyclospora. So the herb sellers could be potentially right, but every one of those studies is in a test tube or in animals like chickens, pigs, cell cultures, in vitro, in vivo, and livestock. So I would grade the value of these as preliminary, and only in surrogates. Not one has yet been shown to cure a human being of cyclosporiasis. And here's why I think this can potentially hurt someone you love. The danger of cyclosporiasis in an older adult is dehydration. So if a frail 80-year-old skips the proven antibiotic and drinks bitter herbal tinctures for 3 weeks while the watery diarrhea grinds on, they aren't doing something neutral, but they could be running straight towards the exact complications I warned about. Dehydration, kidney injury, a fall. Those things can land people in the hospital. Meanwhile, on a positive side, there is a proven treatment that's cheap and a decades-old antibiotic that usually works within a couple days. Hydration, I think, genuinely matters. Fluids and electrolytes, that part of folk wisdom is right. But a parasite cleanse is not a guaranteed treatment, and it's a substitute for the thing that actually works, and for our caregiving community, that substitution can be dangerous. So, what actually does work? The proven treatment is an antibiotic called trimethoprim sulfamethoxidil. You may know it by the brand Bactrim or even Septra. For a typical adult, that's usually one double-strength tablet twice a day for 7 days, sometimes up to 10 days. The efficacy is strong. It's been the standard for 30 years, and most people with healthy immune systems feel dramatically better within a few days. It's inexpensive, it's on every pharmacy shelf, and it works. But two honest caveats here. First, if you're allergic to sulfa drugs, and many people are, the CDC is blunt. No highly effective alternative has been yet proven. Ciprofloxacin is a reasonable second choice, but less effective as it has moderate evidence. Nitazoxanide is used when sulfa isn't an option, but it's supported mostly by scattered case reports. So a sulfa allergy is a real conversation to have with your doctor. Second, never reach for over-the-counter antidiarrheal medicines without asking first, because they can actually trap the parasite in you and prolong the illness. Now, the part that could genuinely change an outcome in your family. And it's what I meant when I said doctors often can't see this thing. Cyclospora is notorious for slipping past standard testing. A routine stool test frequently misses it. Several of the common lab panels don't even look for it. And because the parasite is shed intermittently, a single stool sample can come back clean, even when someone's infected. They may need to submit samples on different days. So here's your script and the specific words to say to your doctor. Don't just say, having diarrhea. Say, given the current cyclospora outbreak, can we specifically test for cyclospora using a modified acid-fast strain or a stool PCR panel that includes it? I just think that one sentence tells the doctor to order the right test instead of the default one. So write that sentence down, put it on the fridge, whatever you have to. Now let's talk prevention. I have to start by demolishing a comfortable myth because I'd rather you have the truth. Many of you are just thinking, oh, I'll just wash everything really well. Sadly, I wish that were important enough, and it's not. What's important here is Cyclospora oocysts cling tightly to produce surfaces, and they're especially good at hiding in little crevices of things like bumpy fruit, raspberries, etc. Washing reduces the parasite, but it does not reliably remove it. Interestingly, chlorine and the usual sanitizers don't kill it either. So the produce wash, you trust it may be helpful, but it's not completely protective. And it brings me to the interesting history of these findings. In the spring of 1996, North America was hit by the largest cyclosporiasis outbreak ever reported. Back then, nearly 1,465 confirmed cases across the US and Canada. Investigators first blamed California strawberries. The strawberry industry took a devastating and completely undeserved hit before scientists cracked the case. It was really coming from imported Guatemalan raspberries. The parasite had been riding in on imported berries all along. The FDA eventually banned fresh Guatemalan raspberry imports in 1998. That 1996 raspberry mystery is why we know raspberries are such a stubborn carrier, and why just wash it was never going to be the whole answer. So history, once again, could be a good guiding manual for right now. So what may actually protect your family? Cooking. Cooking is your best friend. Heat kills the parasite, so leafy greens and herbs are the safest cooked. During an active outbreak like this one, favor whole heads of lettuce over pre-washed bagged mixes and discard the outer 2 or 3 leaves. Wash produce under running water anyway, it still helps. Sanitize your cutting boards and counters. Wash your hands before and after handling produce. And one more for the travelers in the audience. This parasite is endemic in parts of Latin America and South Asia, Guatemala, Peru, Mexico, even Nepal. In fact, about a third of US cases historically involve international travel in 2 weeks prior to symptoms. In those regions, avoid untreated water and raw produce completely. And remember, chlorine won't save you. So bottled water or filtered water is the rule. The question all of this begs is, why now? Why are we having this outbreak? And I'm going to hand you the documented facts, let the experts speak from every side, and then tell you honestly where this certainty ends. And this isn't a political question for me. This is a caregiving question. So here are the facts. In mid-2025, the CDC scaled back its foodborne surveillance network called FoodNet and made cyclospora reporting optional, reducing the pathogens it actually tracks down to just essentially 2, Salmonella and E. coli, citing funding. Over the same period, federal food safety agencies saw significant staffing reductions and some layoffs that were later reversed. A key FSMA food traceability rule, one designed to help investigators trace a contaminated food back to its source fast, was postponed by about 30 months. And the FDA's foreign food facility inspections hit a historic low in 2025. These are documented facts, not political opinions. Now, the experts from different corners. Donald Schaffner, a food microbiologist at Rutgers, was asked directly whether the cuts caused this outbreak. His honest answer was, it's unclear, but could we have learned earlier? Could we be finding out more? On the other side, a CDC branch chief, Dr. Diana Blau, said there's been no difference in how cyclosporiasis cases are handled at the agency recently. So where does that leave us honestly? I think no one has proven that any of these changes caused or worsened this specific outbreak. But what we can fairly say is narrower and I think more useful. When you track fewer pathogens and trace food more slowly, outbreaks may be spotted later or counted less thoroughly. Remember how I said the official number is slippery and no food source has been identified? That's the connection worth making here, and I think that's a capacity question. When you make a parasite optional to report, you partly blind yourself to how big it could be and how big this outbreak really is. I think that's a sober, nonpartisan reading here. And it's exactly why you knowing what to ask your doctors matters more this year, not less. Here's your checklist and what could be very practically beneficial. 1. Dehydration is the enemy. Watch for dizziness, dry mouth, dark or scant urine, confusion and weakness, and push fluids and electrolytes. 2. Know the medication angle. Older adults on diuretics or blood pressure drugs or with kidney disease or diabetes are more vulnerable to fluid swings, and the treatment antibiotic itself interacts with blood thinners like warfarin or some other medicines. So make sure the prescriber has their full medication list. Check with the pharmacist. This is general pharmacology worth confirming. 3. If the symptoms drag on or relapse, escalate with that sentence. Please test specifically for cyclospora. 4. In the kitchen, cook produce whenever you can, skip bag salads during the outbreak, and buy just whole heads of lettuce. And 5, the reassurance. You will not catch this from the person that you're caregiving for. Also, here are the free resources and write them down. The CDC's website and FDA's outbreak pages. Follow those for the latest verified numbers. Foodsafety.gov for recalls. Dial 211 for local help with food and daily needs. And the elder care locator, 1-800-677-1116. Which has connected families to local aging services since the 90s, fields about 400,000 requests a year. They'll link you to meals, in-home help, caregiver support in your local community. Also, your local area agency on aging can do the same. I want to leave you with one image. 340 years ago, a curious man in Holland looked at the smallest, most private, most unglamorous part of being human, and by paying honest attention, he opened a door to understanding that is protecting your family this very summer. That's the whole job, really. Just pay honest attention, ask the questions, keep water and fluids close, and check on the people who might be too proud or too tired to check on themselves. Check on your loved ones.
There you go. I think out of doing a lot of searching right there, I found the best guy who laid out the facts. Yeah, I had to cut out a lot of the, fluff in between. If you do want to watch him, the complete whole video, and catch all the stuff that I had cut out, I'll put it in the description. Just jump there and go and watch the whole thing. He brings up stuff about other scientists and other blah, 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 blah stuff that really wasn't, to get you the information as quick as possible kind of thing. But one thing I've always said, and you've watched my other videos, you got to be careful of what you see on YouTube. It has grown from a home-based video opportunity for people like me to basically a corporate kind of thing. And I've even noticed that in advertising, the small guy doesn't get much advertising anymore. The corporate guy, the other shows, gee, it's amazing. Every 5 minutes there's multiple, advertisements. And that's why I asked earlier if you could, please help a guy out, okay? Got to show some kind of interest. But anyways, buyer beware. Now, I remember a few years back, all of a sudden, black seed had showed up on my social media. Black seed videos. Oh, it was, the next best thing in health and stuff like that. And a few years later, there was other stuff, and then there's other stuff, and there's other stuff. There's it's all part of manipulating you and I. And I've got, we've got the conspiracies coming up, okay? If you want to jump to the conspiracies, I'll put a timestamp here because I might babble on here a little bit. I've got a friend, okay? Listen to this closely, okay? About beware of what you see on YouTube, okay? So I've got a friend many years ago decided, well, he knew that when he bought this house of his that he had to have a new septic system put in. And he's seen some kind of crazy, stupid thing on YouTube. And of course, YouTube's doing what they do, and they fill them up with all the information of different videos about the same thing. And it was about the septic system of his house, and he should put in this open leach field system with this crazy piping, and it does that and the other thing. And basically, the county said, no, we make the laws here, you need to put a holding tank in. So after 3 years of getting fined and going to court and being told the same thing, finally he puts in a holding tank. If he would have just did it in the beginning, it would have been done. You can't pump shit out a pipe into the open air into a field. First off, it's going to stink the whole property off, piss off your neighbors, and it doesn't work like it does in a community water system that is constantly turning, filtering, and turning and filtering. These are the things that he failed to investigate and understand. And understanding is the problem here. He's a simple man, okay? So he gets diabetes. And he won't go to a doctor. Finally ends up in the hospital. Blood sugar of 1200. And you need to go on medication. Nope, oh boy, I'll go on YouTube and I'll treat it naturally, and you gotta get your T cells going. And you gotta fast, and then you'll turn your pancreas back on. All right. That was 7 years ago. Full-fledged diabetic. Has to be on insulin. After ending up in the hospital 9 times. Because he was believing bullshit on YouTube, okay? Now, he's got cancer. He's got stomach cancer. And, oh boy, YouTube, they said this, and then you can go turn your T cells back on, and if you eat broccoli, and then you eat rosemary, and you do this, and you eat this, and you eat that, you'll kill the stomach cancer. All right. Well, I had to take him to his last doctor's appointment where they did a surgery last month, and because once again, we won't go to the doctor and we will not take any type of treatment for it. That, we want to treat it naturally. It's now metastasized. And the doctor, because I was in the same room, because I'm down on his personal list of family, basically, even though I'm a friend, you can do that. The doctor said, well, because Tom's, reading him, everything that he's going to do to beat this cancer. And the doctor looked at him and said, well, this cancer probably started 5 years ago. It's because you smoke, period, exclamation mark. And unless you're going to quit smoking, you're going to be dead. All this stuff you're doing is not going to help. It may support and help, but it's not going to kill the cancer. So unless you go in for chemotherapy, you're dead. I'm looking at a dead man. There's nothing we can do for you. Period. So once again, going back to this video from what this guy clarifies, when you start looking up this particular, bug, this sickness, this infection, don't believe any of the shit. You go to your doctor and you get the antibiotic and you're done. It's over with. But anyways, let's jump to more stupid YouTube conspiracies. And number 1 is, well, let's do it backwards. Number 7, and we'll go backwards to number 1. Number 7 is connected to immigration and international travel. Another online claim is that recent immigration and international events have introduced this parasite to the American public, which started out in Michigan. Just think about it for a moment. I mean, come on. This is another planned pandemic, much like 2020, where they purposely let something out of a lab in China and infected the whole world. Government budget cuts have caused this outbreak. Government cutbacks did not cause the outbreak problem. Government cutback is what's causing it from getting to information to us late. But if you're expecting the government to do anything about this, let me explain something to you. You might want to sit down. There's an antibiotic that's already out on the market that wipes this thing out in a week. Since our government is corrupt and fraudulent, and there's no way for them to make money by getting some drug company to come up with a quick pro quo type of drug so they can buy their stock and make more millions, they're not going to do anything about this because there's no money to be made. Okay? Got it? It's actually linked to lettuce. Lettuce is the culprit. No, it's not. You heard the man in the video, okay? It's being caused by imported produce. Once again, you heard the man in the video. He investigated this. He's a professional in the field. He laid it out for you. The government already knows the source but is hiding it. Like UFOs and aliens and multi-universes. Yep. The outbreak is being deliberately caused. That's right. They want to kill everybody off so they don't have to pay out Medicare and Social Security. Yep, exactly. That is number one. Well, anyways, I hope you've learned something here today. I hope you've gotten some insight on the stories that I've given you. And we will see you on the next one.